confirmed. Sorry for everybody who was trying to listen on the app. If you moved over to Twitch, the app is back up. A little bit of a crash there for some reason. It made no sense. I think it affected him. I do. I think it had to, because at a minimum you're changing what your lineup was that you'd worked towards and you're planning. You probably had to push either Barco or Heineman or maybe Lennon more minutes than you would have liked, or Hosetu, depending on how you wanted to shape the team, because of no Pitti in this. So it had to affect him. It's unsettling. I mean, he was, with Joseph injured, Pitti Martinez was the focal point of your attack. He was creating a third of your shots, either for himself or for others. And that's a lot to make up. That's substantial. So were they, worried about it all day? Were they thinking about it during the game? No, these are professionals, but subconsciously, does it affect you? Absolutely. It affects you as well, something we talked about on the broadcast last night, because the team's going to go out into the market now. You don't know what position they're going to go out to. If you're a central midfielder who's been playing in an attack-minded role, they could go get a number 10, and you might get pushed down the depth chart, or you might be looking for another club here in the next year. Yep. If you're on the left side, he could go to the left side and add a player there. You could be looking for another player. Or you could be looking for another club. You could be looking for another place to play. That's the reality when you get to this point, is you have these situations where big news happens during the day, and the game that night feels like it did. I wonder what it would have felt like with fans in the building. I don't know. That would have been really interesting to see what the reaction would have been. If you guys have questions about the game, please fire them off. We'll talk about Pitti as well throughout the morning. I think a deal is imminent. I think that's a fair way to put it. I mean, if you heard Darren Eales with us on the AT&T Countdown to Kickoff, he was very forthcoming. Deals agreed to in principle. Medical was still needed to be done for Pitti. I think timing-wise, and we talked about it on stoppage time, you were running into pretty late in the evening in Saudi Arabia by the time we got to our afternoon. So you probably hit a roadblock on getting all your paperwork done. The Barreau fax might not have been able to get sent by that point. I don't know how long it's going to take. This is a complicated one. Okay, so if you are on Twitch and you are trying to listen on the app, please reload it and double check it, because it was restarted and a new live stream was set up, and it is showing audio on my side. So let me know, please. But reload it and make sure you're on a new on the new file that is just Overreaction Thursday with nothing else. Yeah. Give me a heads up so we can figure that out. Again, this is where a producer would be helping, but we don't have one. Let's get into the Pitti stuff. Just real quick, for those of you who haven't followed the story, it came out about 11:30. Cesar Luis Merlo of TIC, Al Nasser in Saudi Arabia, has made an offer. $18 million is what Cesar reported. I've heard more, not a ton more, but more. It would be the second largest guaranteed amount in a transfer that MLS has ever had, behind the Miguel Almiron deal. The Alphonso Davies deal might end up passing it with all of the add-ons, but that wasn't all guaranteed up front. Al Nassr is a club that was chasing Mesut Ozil and reportedly was linked with a $20 million a year offer for him, not transfer fee, his salary. So if you're wondering why Pitti would be interested in going to Saudi Arabia, there's your answer. Don't know what his salary would be, but I'd assume a fairly substantial pay raise would be in his future. And at 27, and where he is in his career, it doesn't end his European time, because we're seeing right now, and this is one of the other reasons Al Nassr is doing this, Juliano, Brazilian attacker for them, reportedly going to Fenerbahce. Looks like they're in the driver's seat here to get him done. So players do go from Al Nassr to Europe. they also buy players in this kind of price range. So it all fit when the rumor broke. Darren confirmed that a deal was done in principle. It's a deal that I don't think, from what he said and kind of reading between the lines, I don't think it's a deal he wanted to do necessarily at the time because of where the attack is, because of what you want this season to be, and Pity Martinez would be a very important part of that. But it was an offer that you couldn't say no to. And it's an offer that ultimately the player wanted, probably once he saw what the salary would be. So you got to do it. And now you got to go reinvest. And Darren stressed that yesterday when we spoke with him. They're going to reinvest. They don't sell players and then pocket the money and just put it into the safe. They go and they reinvest. They're always looking to improve the roster. Now they've got a designated player spot to do it. And now they've got some more money to work with. You're going to get some GAM out of this, it appears. That's going to extend your cap. And you're going to have that DP slot to do whatever you want with it. That's pretty impressive. Timing is not what you would hope it would be. But now you've got an ability in a buyer's market. We've talked about this all summer long. You've got teams in South America, teams that you have shopped from before that are broke. You got teams that are selling players because they can't pay their salaries right now. You've got an opportunity to stretch your money, and it might not be just one player. Now, here's the other thing, and this needs to be understood. You've got one, when this deal goes down, one senior roster spot open. You still have Eric Lopez. That's something you want to do. He would go into a senior roster spot. He would take the international slot that Pitty's in. That would mean you don't have a roster spot. You have a designated player spot. You don't have a roster spot. You'd have to make another move to add Lopez and a designated player. That has to be understood. But you have the opportunity with the designated player spot to add a significant player. That's what's interesting about this. Timing is not what you want for the season, but timing is really good from a purchasing power standpoint. So we'll see how this plays out. You guys have a ton of questions. We've rambled on enough. I think we have the technical difficulties sorted out. Please, if we don't in the Twitch pitch, let me know. Thank you. It's working. Okay, good. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay. Questions, go. What do we have on Twitter?
Thank you, virtual producer Jack, for fixing the issue.
Nah, that was me. Jack ain't getting the credit for that one.
Cool. All right. Going back after the match last night with the overreaction Thursday at Crazy Jack Attack. If we get a DP now before having a new permanent manager, I'm worried that it could be similar to how we got PT before we knew about Frank DeBoer. I can only hope that the front office has learned from that.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I don't think they expected Frank to not fit. Tactically, and I've said this and I'll continue to say it, and I'm not going to back off of it because I still feel this way very strongly. Frank ultimately did not want the team to play all that differently than Tata Martino. For whatever reason, he didn't get his message across. But when the team played its best, and I think from what he said, what we knew from the way his teams had played in the past, he did not want as big of a departure as we saw. Now, you can have a manager in place. You can go make a signing. It can still not fit. Diego Maradona went to Barcelona. They had a manager in place. Diego Maradona at the time was, if not the best player in the world, one of the best, one of the up-and-coming young talents in the world at the time. It didn't work. That happens. Felipe Coutinho at Barcelona, that didn't work. He was tearing it up at Liverpool. We see these things happen. Sometimes you can have the manager in place and it still happens. I don't think it's a guarantee that it doesn't happen. So be careful about that one. But ultimately, you want to hire a manager as soon as you can. You want to sign a player that's going to change your fortunes in 2020 as soon as you can. You can't guarantee that both happen immediately and both are everything you would hope they would be. That's what's hard about sports. That's what's hard about the situation. So we will see. But I don't think it's as critical as I think a lot of people do, because this team has a way that they want to play. They're going to hire a manager that fits into that. They're going to hire a player that fits into that.
JBG at Goldie for everyone. Do we need to worry about a late call suspension for Dom?
I think it'd be incredibly harsh, but I don't know what to say anymore about the disciplinary committee. Dom swung his arm back after getting manhandled by Ben Sweat, and the play was allowed to continue a little bit too long. And then Ben Sweat was out of his mind afterwards. Yellow both ways was the way to resolve it, but after what we saw with Franco, I don't know anymore. You didn't see anything for Antonio Carlos, and that was far more dangerous than I think what we saw from Jürgen Damm last night. I hope not. I think it'd be incredibly harsh. I don't think it should be a unanimous decision by the disciplinary committee, but again, I have no idea. I did see that certain people who tweet a lot about Atlanta United for interesting clicks were trying to drive that one home, trying to create a hype train. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Dom's got to try to keep his head there a little bit better, but also, I mean, you got at least 3 forearms in the back in the kidney region from Ben Sweat. That's a pretty cheap shot.
Nathan Pugh is in with a couple of thoughts this morning, and he says it was tough to follow on radio last night. Lots of fouls that broke up play. I got confused who was fouling whom, haha. And Bree Pitty, I would assume a number 10 would be on the docket. Really have no idea who's available at the moment.
That's the hard thing about who's available. And look, this always happens. There's a player available. Atlanta United's going to go get him. Who's available? Let's start getting a list together of all this. It doesn't mean that's who they're going to be shopping from. They're generally looking for players that have resale value. Pity Martinez had resale value. People question that. People are like, he's not what they bought in Miguel Almiron. He's not Ezequiel Barco. He's not a young player that's going to get better. Well, you made a profit on Pity Martinez. So, he had resale value. You're not going to go get a 32-year-old who's available. You're not going to go get a 33-year-old who's available who doesn't have resale value. But that definition of resale value might be a little bit larger than you think now. I don't know. I'm intrigued. I don't think you're going to shop in Europe because I don't think that's where your best deals are to be had right now. I think your best deals are to be had in South America. And, you look at some of the players in Argentina, for example, because I think it's a league that translates really well to MLS. Players can hit the ground running faster here from Argentina. You've seen a long track record of success, and I think Atlanta has a good brand in Argentina. And there's a number of players in the $10 to $20 million range that would potentially be a good fit. It's just down to, are their clubs willing to sell? Do they want to hold out and try to make more money holding on to the player, selling to Europe? We will see. But who's available, I don't know if that even really applies in this, unless you are a scout of top 18 to 24-year-old talent in South America. Then you might have a list of players who would be a good fit here. Otherwise, I'm not looking at major clubs or anything like that. I'm looking at guys that you can get, guys that you can have perform very well, and then guys that you can sell for a profit and continue to reload and recycle.
Nathan also says he's assuming a number 10 simply because we need something creative in the midfield and the absolutely stupid reason of the kit number being open.
It's definitely not the kit number. Doug Robertson said number 10 last night on our Southern Fried Soccer podcast. Make sure you check that one out if you have not. I could see it being a player on the left side. I could see going forward with the midfield that we've been seeing here lately and a player on the left side who is a creator, who does create opportunities, but could fit out wide on the left. I'm not ruling that out as a possibility here.
And then Nathan, also, how about that Arabic invasion into the Atlanta United Twitter feed? That was crazy to see. Google Translate got worked last night.
That was very cool. That's the cool thing about this stuff when it does happen. I'll be keeping up with Pitti in Saudi Arabia. I've never watched the Saudi Arabian League. I've never followed it. I'll be keeping up with how he's doing over there. It's what you see. I mean, I've noticed it from, when Atlanta plays Motagua or Herediano and CONCACAF. I start paying attention to those teams a little bit more. You start to build this, friendship in the game in a lot of ways around the world as players go to different clubs, as you play clubs in competition. So it's a very cool thing, and it just makes the world a little bit smaller.
And I will probably go chasing after the
I'm
Al-Nassr
surprised
jersey.
you don't already have it.
Well, because we still have it. We still have a medical we have to go through, and I'm keeping an eye on that.
Mm-hmm.
And did you see where, as a part of the Mesut Ozil negotiation, they offered him, I think it was a knighthood and citizenship in Saudi Arabia as a part of the deal? That's how badly Al-Nassr wanted it.
Well, citizenship's an easy thing. I think that's a common one. The knighthood, I don't know the status of knighthood in Saudi Arabia. I think they've offered citizenship to a lot of different people for these situations. I would expect Pitty's going to get paid very, very well in Saudi Arabia because, I mean, you're getting a really good player, and this is I guess the thing that is really strange to me is that you've got a reaction that I'm seeing fairly clearly from people about Pitty wasn't good enough. Pitty didn't do enough in Atlanta. He was a success. He wasn't a success. He was a bust. He didn't do anything. But you just had a club come in and pay somewhere between $18 and $20 million for him. They don't think he's a bust. Mm-hmm. They think he's pretty freaking good. You're going to end up right now. Go look at the transfers that have happened so far in the window, and there's still more business to happen. But right now, that deal, depending on where the final number comes in, it's a top 15 deal in the world right now. It's a big deal right now. So, if you can sell bad players for $20 million, man, you're a wizard. Start a car dealership and make millions. I mean, Pity Martinez has had a good run in Atlanta. Were the expectations that it would be better? Yeah. Did we see glimpses of better? We absolutely did. Pity Martinez had some brilliant moments in an Atlanta United kit. Were maybe the expectations too high? It's possible. That's what you want out of great players and great signings, though, right? You want the expectations to be high. You don't want to come in and be like, he's a bum. He's not going to be any good. You don't want that. That doesn't do anything for the brand. Doesn't do anything for the team. You want the expectations to be very high, and he worked very hard to reach them, in my opinion. I think he handled the situation with Frank, who they obviously weren't on the same page all the time, and both said that, and neither one got to name-calling and being disrespectful. If you want to say Pitty speaking to the media is disrespectful, I think it's a bit of a stretch. Pitty came into this year, I think, really motivated, happy, comfortable, and I'm talking in CONCACAF and at the beginning of the season. I thought he played his best at that point. I really hate that we didn't get a chance to see what the 3-4-3 with Pitty Barco behind Joseph could have ended up being. And when Joseph went down, everything changed. When the world stopped, everything changed even more. Yeah. And everything is in a different place right now. So, for Pitty to have an opportunity, potentially, I mean, we'll probably hear it at some point, whatever salary he could be getting in Saudi Arabia. For him to potentially secure his financial future at a time when a lot of people in his home country are looking at financial ruin, can't hold that against the guy. Would have loved to see him here longer. Would have loved to see him lift an MLS Cup, but I can't hold anything against him. I think he gave everything for the shirt that he could.
Caleb Cook, he says, there was enough negative last night, so let's look at some positives.
Okay. Thank you, Caleb.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on Miles' distribution. I've been impressed so far. Looks like he's added the long diagonal that Berhalter covets. He's carrying forward into the midfield like last year, but his passes were often short, rushed, or off target. He looks to have worked on that and has played several balls that have been somewhat dangerous in attack, often splitting defenders. Don't get me wrong, he's no PK. I'm just saying you can tell he's working on it.
He can be a PK. And this isn't Caleb. This is just a general thing about that happens a lot. It's like, this American player, well, he's not this guy, he's not this guy. He can be. Miles' development's been pretty astounding, to be perfectly honest. 2017, you didn't see him. 2018, he had some up and down moments, but he finally played consistently at the pro level late in the year with Atlanta United 2. Played well in a playoff game. Tata never trusted him in possession. That's why he didn't play as much. Frank did, and Frank got the best out of Miles Robinson last year. And we saw glimpses of the things that Caleb's talking about in terms of distribution. The game in Monterrey, I thought Miles had some of those line-splitting passes that created opportunities. You need center backs to be able to do that now. The long diagonal, something he hasn't done as much of. Meza has done more of that this year as well, too, but he's adding that as a more regular feature of his distribution. And when he can step forward with his speed, and he's a good dribbler, when he can step forward, it's one of those things that we were talking about at the beginning. When you get defenders forward, you can get more numbers forward. You can create more opportunities. I love when he takes those runs. I want him to continue to do that more as you grow. Now, in the way Atlanta United is currently structured, you need a number 6 who recognizes that and drops for him, because it's harder to pick up the guy making the deeper dribbling around the center back rather than the 6 going forward. It's that moment of surprise. You need somebody to recognize it, cover for him. You also need a center back next to him who is mobile and can cover that space. When it gets disorganized, they can clean it up. But you want Miles to be able to continue to do that. If he continues to develop at this rate, he's a little bit older than, you wish he was doing this at 19, 20. But if he continues to develop at this rate, he'll play in Europe at a major club. He has the potential to be the best American center back of all time. I'm not trying to give you hyperbole this morning. He has the potential because he has the whole package. He has the speed. He has the ability in the air. He has the strength. He has the 1v1 defending. All those things are there. The greats take that next step. They read the game. He's still developing that. They are dangerous with the ball at their feet. He's still developing that. They are a goal threat on set-piece situations. He's still developing that. He's good in the air, but not as good from an attacking perspective. He's got the potential to continue growing quickly. Very, very smart player. Very gifted player with just the physical gifts that he has with speed, with power. But when he connects all the dots, he has the potential to be the best American center back of all time. So I'm not ruling out that he can't be like PK. He's still got room to grow. But yeah, he's adding more and more to his game. It seems like every month.
Jason Nix on the Twitter side, because I know he's also a part of the Twitch pitch on a daily basis. On Twitter, Jason Nix says, what happened to Glassy's statements about opening up the team and playing more front foot soccer? I feel like we're more tentative than with Frank de Boer at the moment. Kubo was disappointing last night. Big early miss aside. 9th in the East at the moment.
So Kubo's first 90-minute game, I think, in maybe a calendar year. I'll have to go back and see the last time he played 90 in Mexico. I was a little surprised he played 90. I didn't know if he had 90 in him, and he probably didn't. That's the thing, right? Disappointed in Kubo for how he played. He hasn't been playing. It's not a switch you can flip, and you can just be what you were in 2017 in Major League Soccer in your first 90-minute performance. It's just not. The idea about Glassy, and I've seen this come up a lot, and I think it's incredibly unfair. Look at what this guy's had to deal with. He's walked into a situation that I think it's clear there were issues behind the scenes with the players and the technical staff. He's had to fix that. He's had to fix it quickly as games piled up. Now he's having to fix it with really very little full training sessions because of the schedule. He's had to fix it with a roster that has a number of injuries on it, minor things, fitness issues, as guys like Dom and Torres come into the team. And then yesterday he had to fix it with his best player being sold. I don't think Glassy's telling these guys to hold back. It doesn't make any sense. It's the same criticism that people had of De Boer, that he's holding them back. He's got shackles on the team. No, I don't buy that at all. Like, what would the benefit to doing that be? This isn't a team that's playing defensively for draws. That's not the way they're playing. It wasn't the way they were playing last night. This is a team that's lacking in confidence in the attacking half in the final third. The manager can affect that, but the manager's not making the decisions on play faster, play this pass, make this run. There's responsibility on the players, guys, and they have to find a way through this. He can set them up. He can give them the tools. He can set up the structure. He can give them the support behind so they can go forward and not worry about conceding goals the other way. But he can't play for them. So he's an interim manager doing the best that he can in a very difficult time. I don't think he's trying to have them play defensively. And then you get back to the whole question that we've had in the last couple of games. Do you, and I don't know what people want. I don't know how people would react to it, but right now, if you were in most leagues around the world and you were looking at promotion relegation and you were concerned at the moment as where the standings are, what happens with teams in this spot right here? You get very defensive. You start to play with a bunch of numbers behind the ball. You play on the counter. You play route one to get results. That wouldn't be acceptable. Not here. Not with the way people have reacted. So you have to try to get more numbers forward, but the players are worried about the team not scoring a lot of goals, knowing giving up one could be a loss. So they're holding back, and it feels like that at times. Doesn't feel like the manager is setting them up to hold back. It feels like the players are holding back. That's the way I'm seeing it. I could be wrong, but I don't see Stephen Glass, from what he said and conversations we've had with him for a year and a half now, becoming a defensive manager. He's not setting up the team to be defensive. He's just not. The team's not set up to be defensive. If they're playing defensively, I think that's a confidence issue. And that's where leadership comes into play. You've got to have, you need more Brooks Lennons in this team. And I'm going to single him out in a positive way because he plays with an attitude. He plays hard. He's aggressive. He plays with emotion. That can be contagious. That's why it's hard to take him off the field right now. But you need more of that. And this is something where Remedi talked about it after the Orlando game. I think he talked about it on Monday. Other players have echoed it. Sometimes in games where you might be tentative, you might be scared, you might be worried, that emotion comes from the stands. That's why in this sport, what people do in the stands is very important. That's why you see, supporters in other countries constantly backing their team, like trying to motivate them. It's motivation that can get you to fight through that tentativeness. It can get you to fight through that fear. Right now, you don't have that. So it's got to come from within. It's got to come from players on the field. It's not coming consistently enough, and it needs to. They need to not be afraid of conceding one. Hopefully, last night, and this was something that Stephen Glass hinted at, hopefully last night you saw with Miles Robinson, with Anton Walks, with Edgar Castillo and Franco Escobar, a backline that didn't concede a goal. A backline that didn't concede a whole lot of major chances either. A backline that allowed you to play more freely going forward because they had your back. That needs to inspire some confidence going forward. It needs to inspire some confidence going forward. And you've just got to take more chances.
Taka's in this morning on the Eric Lopez, and he says, I wanted to say, my questions about Lopez were not because I wanted him in the 11 to solve all of our problems. It was strictly a matter of the acquisition appearing, and that word is in quotes, to rely upon an assurance that a season-long first-team loan would come for Lopez upon his arrival. If that was indeed the case, I would hate to see Atlanta United fail to make good on that promise. I don't want to bait and switch on our record. Regarding playing time, if all he was promised was non-league matches, then there is little the club can do, and it is less their fault.
But this is what I keep saying, and Tafka, I know you weren't saying he'd be in the 11, but two things on Eric Lopez, because we talk about it way too much. Eric Lopez is a promising player for the future. He's played 16 professional games, period. That's it. There has been no track record of Atlanta United lying to players to sign them. Zero. None. Why is there an assumption that's the case now? Why are we now questioning the integrity of the front office in signing? It doesn't make any sense, guys. It doesn't make any sense. Obviously, conversations start well before a signing actually goes down. He was brought in when was his announcement? Beginning of June?
Yeah.
Was it that early, or was it beginning of July? Because I know it was before the MLS's back tournament, because it was talked about then. You're talking to him before that. Even just from the rumor perspective, the rumor started at least a few weeks before the announcement was done.
Signed July 18th.
July 18th. I think the stuff started with him at least 2 weeks prior. So let's say beginning of July. Open Cup wasn't canceled by that point. I don't know what was being said behind the scenes. I don't know if there was talk about a tournament or what. If there had been any kind of even an abbreviated tournament, Atlanta would have been in it as the holders of the trophy. So those games would have been factored in. Don't know at that time, but we know at least around that time there were conversations. Wait a minute, he was signed July 18th?
Yeah.
That's after the MLS's back tournament started, and I thought Frank DeBoer had mentioned before that. Anyway, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about dates here at this point. It looked like there were opportunities that he could have played. There was also talk that you would be able to have players go back and forth more, not less, more after the MLS's back tournament. I don't know what was said to his representation. I don't know what his representation said to him. I don't know what was said directly to him, but this club's never lied to a player to get them to sign a contract before. I don't think it's started now over a promising young player in Eric Lopez, but also an 18-year-old who's not going to transform your club in 2020. So sometimes people deserve the benefit of the doubt, and I don't know why this one got that kind of reaction. Not from Tafka, I'm talking about in general. Like there's been a lot of that going around. It's been a very, very strange year. It's been a very, very strange year. It sounds like when Atlanta wanted to bring in Eric Lopez, they thought there were going to be mechanisms for him to play with the first team. Those mechanisms either were taken away or did not happen. And you're in the situation you're in now.
Shiva's in on the Twitter side of things, and she says, I'm not going to lie. I'm worried about the morale of our team. No wins and no goals repeatedly can get to the players, specifically for a big club like ours. It will not be easy to pull us together once we are down as a team.
No, see, I disagree on that, Shiva, because I think it can be easy to bounce back because of who this team is and who this club is. But yeah, you've got to, I think we're seeing it play out on the field. You've got to change that mood. That vibe has to change to get the most out of this group. That's coming from the group. I mean, you can do everything possible to try to change it from the outside to affect it, but it's going to come from the players. It's going to come from the locker room. Once you get a good result, I think you can start to see that. As I said, you've given up 8 goals this season in MLS play in 8 games. That's tied for your best defensive performance with last season, where you gave up 8 goals in 8 games. Both were better starts than 2018 and 2017. There should be more belief in this back line. You know, you've given up some questionable goals here. You've given up goals off of set pieces, which is a different conversation than run of play. From the run of play, this defense has been pretty good. Have they given up a couple of goals that have been miscommunication? Absolutely they have. They're not getting blown out of games. So that's where I don't understand the disconnect in the attack, in being tentative and being scared to expose the back line. you've got to trust in them. You've got to trust in a guy in Miles Robinson. And maybe it's just because, look, he wasn't there at the very beginning. He didn't have a great MLS's back tournament. Wasn't horrendous. It just, it was all right. But he's been good since. Maybe it was because he wasn't 100% fit going into game one. I don't know. But that's got to change now. And I hope that what you take out of last night is you can trust this defense to get the job done. And I'm talking like the players, the people who can trust that is the midfield, is the attack. Go. Take chances. Go. Franco Escobar, Edgar Castillo, George Bello. You get an opportunity to go, they've got your back. You've got to go and finish plays. That's just got to happen. It's there's just no way around it at this point. The defense should be getting more trust. You've got to commit more numbers forward, and you've got to go for it in the final third, not hold back.
El Mataflo's in this morning on the Twitter side, and he says, if Barco also leaves, parenthesis, if being the big word here, close parenthesis.
Hold up. I want to say this on Barco because there's two levels to this. Now, Barco's going to go at some point. I don't think there's much of a question about that. But there was a rumor that popped off this morning that was shared. I think MLS Buzz retweeted it. It's from a fan account of Sevilla. There's no journalist attached to it. Be careful about those things, y'all. The fan accounts, like this was the same thing that every major Brazilian club had posted pretty much at the beginning of every transfer window about Pity Martinez. You can see mocked up pictures of Pity in a Palmeiras kit, in a Flamengo kit. I mean, pick whatever club you want. There wasn't a journalist attached to it. Is Barco going to go at some point? Yes, I think he will. I don't know where, I don't know when. But this rumor is not the same situation as what happened yesterday morning with Pity Martinez. There's no journalist attached to it. It's just, it could be somebody who is a fan of the team saying, yes, I like Ezequiel Barco. I'd like to see him here. I'm going to post it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But go ahead about in general. I wanted to make sure like we're not talking about an imminent move there because of a fan rumor.
Right.
In general about Barco leaving. Go ahead.
El Mataflo believes maybe we should just hang tight where we are without making any big signings until we have a coach. We have core foundations at the club, but without someone take two, John. We have core foundations at the club, but without someone with a blueprint, they will remain ideals. I'm also discontent with going out and signing a DP right away, unless we're getting Alexander Alvarado, who really should be a TAM signing. I think the clean sheet was good, maybe not warranted, but something to build on. Not a great game in general last night. Anywho, maybe we should just take this year to play kids if we're going to wait on signings and coaches. This is a super negative take, so please take it with a grain of salt. I was happy to see Wolf play last night. Hashtag Overreaction Thursday.
El Mataflo and the Twitch pitch said, "Oh man, I mistyped that." It's all good. Look, I don't know. I don't know what the timeline is on a coach. It's hard to guess any timelines right now. If the right player is available and they're available at a price you think is a good one and you can get them now, I think you have to take it. In very broad terms, yes, I think you would like to have a manager in place before you go out and fill this roster spot. But judging from the reaction of people and media about Pity Martinez going and what needs to happen, would that be acceptable? I don't know. I tend to think not. And it's not what Darren Neal said to us yesterday. They want to go fill this. They want to go add a player to give this team an opportunity to win MLS Cup this year. That can happen. We've seen it. We've seen summer window moves spark a team to a Cup win. Nicolas Lodeiro going to Seattle, 2016. That was a team that Lodeiro was brought in to work with one manager. The day Lodeiro showed up at the building, Sigi Schmid was fired. And what they do? They went on and won MLS Cup. Lodeiro had a huge hand in that. So it can be done. It's not easy. but it can be done. And this is a unique kind of market right now. I don't think you want to miss that opportunity. This is the kind of time where like you are really assessing what you have, what you need, and how you can get what you need. And that includes the manager in that conversation, but the club might have to act now and not be able to wait. And that's what happens in this game. We see it at clubs all the time. You know, it's not a unique to Atlanta or MLS situation. We see clubs make moves without managers. We see clubs not wait on hiring the manager and they make moves. It does happen. The thing about ideals is they're ideals. I mean, that's not a negative. That's just a fact. Like the club has a way they want to play. They have certain kinds of players they prioritize. They have players that fit into the way they want, and they're going to go try to get those players. That's going to be the same with or without, Jim Jenkins as the manager. It doesn't matter. That's going to happen. You just got to get those signings right. You got to get the managerial hire right, and you've got to look at the roster and say, where can we get better? And now you've got more resources to work with, but you don't have unlimited resources. Again, you got one senior roster spot open. You have a designated player spot open. You have an international spot open when this Pity Martinez deal gets done. You have Eric Lopez, who would fill all of those spots if you want him on the first team roster right now. Then you, or not the designated player spot. It would fill the international slot, fill the senior roster spot. Then you don't have that. Gwen's reluctantly agreeing. She's getting a little worked up. So if you want to do both, if you want Lopez in the team, and you want to go out and get a designated player, you got to move somebody else. So you're in some ways back to square one, in some ways not. The other thing we don't know, too, is what contracts look like going into 2021. Who is out of contract potentially, who is going in, more importantly, the last year of their contract, who has an option that you have to make a decision on. Now is when you've got to start looking like that. You're not looking at just the rest of 2020 in terms of we need to sign somebody for the next 3 months or 4 months or whatever. It's we need to make the right moves for the next 16 months for this year and next year. And you've got to look at those decisions and probably make those decisions now, at least from a rough perspective of we're not going to pick up an option on this player, so that would free up X amount of money, that would free up a roster spot, or we are going to pick up the option on this player, so we don't have that to work with. It's going to be a very busy time. It's going to be a very busy time in the office because you've got to look at all of that in totality along with the managerial search in making decisions. But you can't not pounce on a good deal if the right deal is there. But you don't have to rush it either. I feel like I'm countering everything with something else, but that's what this situation is. You can't be rash about it and just go sign the best player available today and make a bad signing. But you also can't just sit on your hands either, because it's a special time in the market where you might be able to get a deal that you'll never get again. So you have to be ready to move, but I think probably right now, while you're waiting on the Pity Martinez deal to get finalized, you are projecting out over the next at least 16 to 18 months and maybe the next 2.5 years of what this roster looks like.
Fourcard Ahmed's in this morning. He says he'd like to see the same starting lineup again on Saturday just to get consistency and rhythm. I think we were better than last Saturday. Hopefully, with just more time everyone playing together, the goals will come. If we can't go full speeds in practice, go to Orlando. But
this is the problem, Fourcard, and this is the part that when I see the talk about the lineups, is everybody going to be able to go again? I mean, because you got to remember, you didn't play last Wednesday, but you prepared like you did, and you traveled, which takes more of a hit out of you than staying home. So you're on a run right now where you played against Nashville, you traveled to Fort Lauderdale, you prepared to play, you ultimately didn't play. You played on Saturday against Orlando. You played last night at home in a pretty fast-paced game. Like, it's a scoreless draw, but it wasn't both teams just sitting there staring at one another either. There was pace to that match. So you played that last night. Then you're going to turn around. You're going to regen today. You're going to probably go half speed, work on set pieces a lot, stuff like that. Minimal physical exertion on Friday. You're going to travel day of the game Saturday. You're going to play Saturday. You're going to come back Saturday night. You're going to regen Sunday. You'll have a full session on Monday. You'll have the lighter day on Tuesday. You'll play on Wednesday in Fort Lauderdale with travel. You'll come back. You'll regen next Thursday. You'll have the light day on Friday. You'll travel and play in Nashville on Saturday and back. And then we don't know what it is after that. It sounds like that's going to come out pretty soon, according to Brian Dunseth on the RSL broadcast last night. That's a lot. It's a lot of minutes. It's a lot to run the same lineup over and over again. I think we're seeing, last night you saw a lot of teams fail to find the net. You're seeing the heavy legs start to affect it. And, yeah, Miami had heavy legs too. That's why they rotated their lineup. That's why they didn't score a goal either. It's not an excuse in saying, well, Atlanta, you should feel okay because they got a scoreless draw because they were tired, and not saying that Miami wasn't. No, Miami was tired too. That's why they didn't score and didn't look all that threatening. It's just real. I don't know if Kubo can go 90, turning around again. I hope he can go 45 to 60 at least. Yeah. Can Barco go further? Maybe so. We'll see. Can Heineman turn around and go again? Potentially. He looked okay. Hosetu has looked good. I haven't really noticed any fatigue with him yet. Lennon has been amazing in terms of his motor. Franco should be rested because he got a game off and all that. Bello can go back into the lineup for this one. I think that was part of the intention here. You'll have Jeff available, who wasn't ready to go for this one. He could factor in if you have tired legs in the middle of the park. I think you'd like to have as much continuity as you can, but I don't think complete same lineup going Saturday from last night is feasible right now. I think you're going to have some changes, but hopefully they're minimal.
B. Wallace adding to the conversation about Darren's interview. He says, Darren said they'd like to bring in a DP this window, but I'd like to have a manager first. That way he could have some input on the selections.
And we've talked about it, so if there's any more questions like that, I'm not ducking it. It's just there's really nothing else to add. In a perfect world, you have a manager, but the manager's not making the signing either. That needs to be understood. If the right player is available for the right price that fits what you want a player at Atlanta United to be, you shouldn't say no to doing it if that's available now, because it might not be available in January. It might not be available next summer, and you're not waiting that long on a designated player anyway. If the right guy's available, you got to take it now. You just have to. You're hiring a manager to fit all the same things that you're hiring players to fit. So you should be in alignment with those. And that's the way you have to operate. You can't miss out on a good deal right now. So and I'm sure there's more questions about that. I just want to make it clear. We've talked about it. I don't know what else to say with it, so I want to keep getting into new stuff and try to cover as much ground as possible. But before we move on, you got to tell us about Steve Apolinsky in Decatur.
That I do. Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. Wrongful death and serious injury attorneys. And if this is a conversation that you need to have, give Steve a call or check in with Steve a couple of different ways. You can shoot him an email directly, Steve, S-T-E-V-E, at aa-legal.com. Also, what you can do is go to that website, aa-legal.com, 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison, for that. And a pop-up window pops up when you hit the enter button or whatever device you're using. And you can have a conversation with someone right then and there. If you don't want to have a conversation with Steve, you can have a conversation with an individual who can steer you in the right direction. Also, you can give them a call at 404-377-9191. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama for wrongful death and serious injury matters. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine. Top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. The website for Apolinsky and Associates LLC is aa-legal.com.
Nicely done. All right, let's get a couple more from Twitter. The Twitch pitch is loaded and ready to go, and we'll be getting their questions as well. For people who were trying to listen to the beginning of the show on the app and on the website, whatever happened with the Spreaker Studio app was not pushing the sound out. It was when we started it, or it looked like it was. It dropped. We had to restart it. So it's live now if you just want to listen to the audio. We will load the whole show's audio as a podcast, so you won't miss anything if you want to go back and check it out as a podcast. Welcome to 2020. All right, what else do we have on Twitter?
All right, the Colonel's in this morning, and he says, during the first half, while I was eating my bowl of buttered noodles with parm and black pepper.
With what? With what?
Parm and black pepper.
John, you don't use parm and black pepper, do you?
I just use black pepper with buttered noodles. I don't do parm.
Okay, well then, Colonel, you have better taste. That's my whole point. Just putting butter and some pepper on noodles is gross. If you're adding parm, then you're getting into some different levels here. I'd still go with a different kind of sauce, but hey, you're not just putting butter on plain noodles that aren't salted. Go ahead.
All right. The Colonel thought about you saying that hashtag Unite and Conquer needed to trade or sell somebody to make cap room for Kubo Torres. Behold the power of long shoot. Hashtag Somos Atlanta.
Oh, man, it's all kinds of craziness. Let's couple more on Twitter before we get into the Twitch pitch.
Yeah, I'll give you Chris Hutchison and Daniel Price. So Chris Hutchison says, his hashtag Thursday mood is the only positive I had from last night is my opinion of Miami's away kit. And of course, he doesn't say what his opinion was.
So I'm like, wait, what?
He doesn't give me a positive or a negative. He just says hashtag Thursday mood. That was his only positive. So were you positive that you dug it, or were you positive that you didn't like it? So that's the...
Well, I'm assuming if it was a positive, he liked it.
Okay.
I think he was using positive in the positive or negative sense, not positive in the I'm sure of this sense.
Yeah. All right. Daniel Price, before we go to the Twitch pitch. His thoughts from last night. One, Atlanta United looked like a team that hadn't played together. The formation got blurred less than 10 minutes in, it felt. I can't really fault them for that, though. The group really hadn't played together. It'll come with time. Two, I guess building on the previous point, they need to find those passes in the final third. Possession overall was good last night. They couldn't make anything with that possession. Links and such just weren't there. They had heart. There wasn't a lack of trying.
You don't want the formation to be rigid. You don't want it to be rigid. That's what everybody's complained about at different points. You don't want the formation to be rigid. It's not supposed to look like a 4-3-3 at every snapshot when you look at the all-22 camera. It's not. It's just a shape to start in at kickoff. There's principles in it, but the principles are not to look like straight line of four, however your midfield structured, if it's 1 behind 2, if it's 2 behind 1, or a line of 3, and then a line of 3. You can't play rigidly. That's part of the problem. They're not playing rigidly. They're playing tentatively. But they're not trying to stay in a shape. So the formation thing, no, I don't think that was the issue. I'm going to take that out. The final third, you definitely aren't thinking formation. I think it was Pep who said this, and it's something that I believe this team needs to maybe be reminded of. From a coaching perspective, Pep said, I'm going to, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm going to give you the structure in the defensive third and in the middle third to give you the freedom in the final third to play. And it goes back to all the things we've been talking about this morning. Barcelona at that time, and it's followed through at Bayern and it followed through at Manchester City, the final third is the players' zone. That's where you have Barco with a ridiculous back heel last night that nearly created an opportunity. It's where you try those things. That's where you can express yourself. That's where you can have fun and enjoy the game. Everybody wants to score goals. That's what the final third's for. You have to have the rest to give you the structure to do that. This team has to believe that they have the structure to do that. And that others can come in and join the party in the final third. And it needs to be a party. And it doesn't need to be rigid. It doesn't need to look like Okay, Kubo Torres is standing right here the whole time, and then Barco's always to the left of him, and Lennon's always to the right. No. Go play. Go play. Go figure it out. Go find it. They need less shape in the final third, and you need the principles behind that, because you want Escobar to go and join in. You want Castillo or Bello to go and join in. You want some of your midfield to go and join in, but you also want the structure to try to limit Miles Robinson having to win a 1v1 battle, or limit Anton Walks having to chase back and make a big 1v1 stick, or Eric Remedi shielding Pizarro to the touchline to prevent him from breaking. You want to limit those 1v1 situations, but you don't want to be scared of them happening either. So the formation stuff, it's always been way too big of an issue. It's not the problem right now. It's not the issue at all. I think, if anything, you just have to have more belief in this team in the final third. The players need to have it in themselves to take more chances. And you've got to do that to find these opportunities. You have to. You just have to. Yes, it needs to be an amoeba in the final third, Domer. I am with you on this. Okay. Matt Wagner's asked on Twitch. He went to Twitter. I told him I'd get him back on Twitch. I'm getting you everywhere, Matt Wagner, because your question is, thoughts on designated player possibilities. Do we go back and relook at Matias Villasanti or Santiago Arzamendia? Would those move the needle right now? Villasanti was a part of the same Paraguayan U23 team that Eric Lopez was part of. More experience, obviously. Good player. Like him. Is his pedigree really all that different than Mateus Rossetto? I don't think it is. Arzamendia would be on the left side. That's a side that I'm not as worried about with George Bello there. So, I mean, you could. You're going to have the ability to go back and look at those. We don't know if those were deals that really got close. We don't know where those stood. We know how they were reported, but we don't know how the negotiations went. Would those be a suitable... Let's say it's Villasanti because it's more positionally the same as Pity Martinez. Would it be an acceptable replacement for Pity Martinez to go and get Matias Villasanti? I don't think it would. I don't think that would go over well. I don't know if that would dramatically change the team. I think you got to go bigger than that. I think you got to go bigger and more attack-minded than that is maybe the big thing. I think Villasanti is a very nice player. I like him a lot. I think Rossetto became available, and the option was to go to Rossetto over Villasanti, maybe because of price, maybe because you rated him higher. Comparing a player who had fallen out of favor at his club in Brazil but had a good bit of experience in the Brazilian top flight to a player from the Paraguayan top flight, most people are going to say the Brazilian top flight's a more competitive league. It's too early to judge on Rossetto in 8 games, and he wasn't even here for all 8. I like what I'm seeing from Rossetto. I think Villasanti would be more of the same as what you already have, whereas to replace Pity, I think you need something more. And Arzamendia, I never really necessarily understood that one from the beginning because it felt a little redundant with talent on that side already. Got to remember, too, now you got Caleb Wiley at 15 playing a lot of minutes with the twos. Mm-hmm. He's going to factor into that long-term depth chart. So with Bello and then Wiley coming, I don't know if you need to add more on the left side. I think those deals might have worked when they were first talked about. I don't know if they necessarily work now. I think with the DP spot, you got to go bigger, more attack-minded, more impact in the final third than you'd get out of Villasanti or Arzamendia. All right, let's. How much more do we have on Twitter? First off,
we got a couple on Twitter.
We got a couple.
A couple. Well, stuff that we haven't talked.
When did they send them? Roughly
45 minutes ago and closer.
Okay, you guys hang out on Twitter for a minute.
Yeah.
the Twitch pitch, we have gotten one that kind of crossed over. So Twitch pitch, y'all got questions, send them in, and we will start to get to them now. So the door is wide open for questions from the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccer down here. Thank you to all of those who subscribe. If you subscribe there, you can go back and watch the older episodes. Those are for subscribers. It supports the show. It's a big help to all of us, so thank you very, very much. We are getting the Peachtree Post scarves in today. Woo-hoo. So they will start going out maybe later today, probably tomorrow to folks who have already ordered them. So there are a handful left for sale. They're $20. Send us a message if you want to grab one. Send it on Twitter. You can send an email, soccerdownhere@gmail, and let us know you want in. It's $20. We'll take it via PayPal, and we'll get those out. There are a handful left, but those will start to go out. If you haven't subscribed to Fanatiz, we're an affiliate there. It's fntz.co/soccer down here. We'll have our post on soccerdownhere.net later today of your games to watch this weekend on Fanatiz. Brasileiro. You can watch games from France. There's going to be a number of games as leagues get started back up on Fanatiz in general. Also got Nations League coming up. That all that stuff's going to be on ESPN. We'll get into all that before we go today and give you at least a look at what's happening today. Big game with Germany and Spain. That's going to be a strange one. It just feels out of place right now. Questions coming in on the Twitch pitch. Let's go ahead and start getting into them now. Ricky Ricardo, thoughts on Tyler Wolff? Looked like a kid. That's not a negative. He played well. He played hard. He looked a little lost at times. He could have had an opportunity in front of net. I think he hesitated on the run. But he's scrappy. I think Tyler's a really smart player, and that was what grabbed my attention in Birmingham in preseason. I really thought for his age, he read the game well. Now for him, because you got to remember, he had one game in USL. It's not like he played a lot there, so he got that transition phase into the pace of play. He's jumping straight from the academy for the most part into this. Now, he's been training for a while, and that helps, but getting games, he hasn't played many at the pro level. So, looking lost, yeah, he was. That's okay. I like him, and he's a really hot prospect out of the academy. Like, they were really a big fan of his work and what he could be. So the fact he gets this opportunity last night, he's fresh, young legs, he contributed. Now it's just getting more time so he's more comfortable and he can be more impactful. But I like Tyler Wolff. And in a normal year, I think he would have seen more experience with Atlanta United too this season. But it's not a normal year, sadly. Harmless Bunny. Do you think our next DP will be more Barco, young potential, needs development, or Pitti, older, established ability? I think in terms of age, maybe somewhere in between. Maybe you're looking at a 22, 23-year-old as opposed to an 18, 19-year-old or a 25, 26-year-old. I think you're looking for somebody who can impact the game now. I don't know if you're looking for somebody who would need time to adjust in a major way. Getting Barco when you did was, I think, a really good move. Now, he's had things that have slowed his development that were outside of your control. Injuries, the kick in Columbus, it still drives me insane. Just that kind of stuff that there's nothing you can do about it. But Barco was a really good purchase, and I think it's still going to pay off. I do think you'll get a profit on that deal. But I think with this move, you're going to need somebody to give you something in the final third that you don't currently have. So you got to have somebody who can come in and do that now, not somebody who can do it in a year or two. I'm looking at like 22 to 23, maybe 24-year-olds, guys with resale value, but more established. That's where my head's at. Yeah. Ricky on Wolff, he hesitated on the run, but Mulroney's cross was not good. It wasn't great, but I think if Wolff had made the run, he could have made that cross into a a good one. It's one of those things that if you wait for the perfect cross, you might just be waiting and not make those runs. You need to have, again, trust that you're going to make that run, you're going to get that service, and you can't stop making the run because you don't get service. That's the hard thing about a forward. You're doing a lot of things that don't get rewarded, and you just have to keep doing them because it opens the game up. Mogi Mo, do you think we are missing threatening balls from the back line? Feels like a big thing we've been missing since LGP left is that big switch line-splitting ball from the back. We play everything in front of the defense, making it easy. Do you see this as an issue? Do Miles, Walks, Meza have the ability to give us that ball? Meza has. Meza has led the team in those long passes over 25 yards. Robinson is doing a little bit more of that in Meza's absence. Walks really hasn't. I think he has it in him. We just haven't seen as much of that. I think early on, because some of structure, some of improving the defense is what you do in possession. It's not just defense is everything without the ball. You use possession to keep structure, to keep organized. And I think it's something that at times got bogged down with Frank in his work in building play up. And I think maybe just the shift to a line of 4 right now is involved in this. It's a little more play short, keep structured, stay connected, as opposed to taking those chances. When they've taken those chances and mixed it up, you've seen some opportunities out of it. The ball over the top to Lennon last night nearly won a PK or a free kick on the edge of the box. They need to mix that in more right now. You don't want it to become the primary route. You don't want it to be the number one way to get from the back to the front. You want to do it in a structured way. Mix it in a little bit more to make the attack a little more unpredictable. If teams are going to sit back when you have them up, when you draw them out, when you have that possession, moving the ball around side to side and coming back to open up space, use the space. Go over the top and use that speed from Lennon, from Mulroney when he's in, from Jurgen Damm. Those guys have to commit to making the runs, but you've also got to play that ball over the top too. So, yeah, I'd like to see more of that. I don't want it to become a crutch, but more of that. And you've got the players who can do it, in my opinion. Primetime Ray. Please explain the origin meaning of Mucha Plata. Yeah, this is old school. It came about before the Miguel Almiron signing in 2016. Atlanta United was linked to like every player imaginable in Argentina. I mean, anybody who was looking for a new contract, I think their agent just whispered Atlanta United. It's like, oh. And there was a report, I don't even remember the outlet, and it wasn't a player who ended up being linked to Atlanta for very long, but they were linked to Atlanta, and in the tweet, they said that, well, Atlanta could get this player because they have mucha plata. They have a lot of money. So it became kind of a joke, and then we started signing off with it. And somebody said it. I wish I could remember who said it because I thought it was kind of cool that it wasn't the intention. It was just a funny phrase that we started using at the time. But somebody said, well, when I hear it, I think you're like wishing us good tidings or wishing us, well or something. I'm like, oh, yeah, I kind of like that. I wish I'd thought of it before we started doing it. But no, it's just that's where it came from. It was the early days. And look, I think we're about to go through it now because now with Mucha Plata coming into the team from this transfer with Pity Martinez and a designated player spot, you're going to have a lot of rumors. And you've got clubs in Argentina who need to sell and want to sell and need Mucha Plata. Mm-hmm. So I think when Messigate is done in Argentina, you're going to hear a lot of players linked to Atlanta United. And maybe Mucha Plata gets mentioned as a reason why they might go to Atlanta. So that's where it came from.
Yeah, and when Atlanta Magazine did their beautiful game from A to Z, the fantasy article a couple of years ago, that was the header referencing this particular show. It was Mucha Plata, y'all. So it was humbling to see it in print, and it's very cool that folks reference it as the way that they do now with good tidings. Mucha Plata. May you have all the gold, all the gold, all the stuff, all the silver, all the gold. It's all yours.
All the lira.
Yes. All the lira. Mucha lira, y'all.
All right, Sean Vergara is demanding Messygate updates. They're up to a 6 box on TIC right now, but they've got a live La Casa de la Pulga. They're outside of Messi's house. We're there. We've got a shot, the uncertain future of Messi and Bartomeu. We've also got River training. They had some scares with coronavirus positive tests. Todos negativos. So it looks like they're going to be okay. 26 positivos in Boca Juniors. That's up from 19. That is no bueno. They have Copa Libertadores action coming up in about 2 weeks. That I don't know how that's going to go. River is back training at their facility, so we shall see. Now, Messygate. The discussions early today, and I saw it first come through last night. Remember, you've got multiple layers here. Messi wanted to go. He said, I want out. I have a clause in my contract. I want to leave. Barcelona said, you had to hit that escape clause by June 10th. Messi said the season wasn't over by June 10th. So, no, the clause would be at the end of the season, and I'm saying now. Hence, here is my burofax. Barca said, we're not accepting your burofax. We don't believe you, and we're going to fight you on this. And then you had some back and forth of, in the media, I want to do this the right way. I want to leave. I don't want things to be negative. I want it to be okay. I just want to go. And Barca said, no, I don't care. No. If somebody wants to come in and pay the reserve clause, which is 700 million euro, cool. But no, we don't want you to leave. You're playing. In fact, here's a deal for 2 more years. We want you to stay for that. This is all before Messi's father arrived, who handles Lionel Messi's business dealings. He arrived yesterday. He met with the club yesterday. Now, late yesterday, it came out that there was a 90% chance that Messi stays. And some of the reasoning is, I think, where he could go if he fights this. Because if he wanted to fight it, he could go to FIFA and say, this was my contract, everything changed because of the coronavirus pandemic, I should have been able to trigger the out clause when I did, I should be able to go. And FIFA would probably give him a provisional okay on that. Barcelona has threatened that anybody who signs him, they're going to take him to court. They're going to take the club to court. They're going to take Messi to court, even with that provisional okay from FIFA. Because that provisional okay could turn into a no, and then the club would have to pay the escape clause of $700 million. Manchester City reportedly has said, nah, dude.
Yeah, we're not going there.
We're not doing that. PSG has said the same. Both have said they're interested. Both have said they would work with the player and try to get this done. But they're talking around like $100 million in a transfer fee, not $700. And they don't want to risk lawsuits and fights and then potentially having to pay a bunch of money in the backside because neither one can do that with financial fair play, although the actual impact of financial fair play is skeptical these days. So now it's looking like the ways out for Messi, because he might be able to fight his way out of his contract, but there might not be anybody who wants to sign him because of the risk, potentially financially. So he might not have anywhere to go. And then the next step becomes, well, then is he out of contract at the end of the year and he can just walk then? Then how does everything change? And it could change. It could then turn into a transfer saga of Barcelona saying, well, if he's not going to sign a new deal, then yes, we will sell him for X amount. The word's always been on the Manchester City side is, we're interested, we need to know what the terms of battle are here. Because we're not paying the reserve clause. Can we negotiate on sending you players? Can we negotiate on a transfer fee? Okay, cool, let's talk. But we're not paying the $700. Barcelona so far has said, we're not selling. You can only get him for the $700. So the thought is that maybe Messi just doesn't have a way out. And one bit of speculation, I believe it was Tancredi Palmieri who had this first, people have asked, well, why didn't Messi trigger the escape clause on June 10th, which was the deadline? One, the season wasn't over. You still had Champions League. You still had a lot of stuff. So I think that's the biggest reason.
Yeah.
But the other reason that Palmieri has speculated on, which isn't crazy, is that at that time, Manchester City was banned from Europe.
Yep.
They were not playing in the Champions League next year. So that was not an appealing destination. Now they are. Did that have something to do with it? It could. I think it's more likely that the season wasn't over and et cetera, but it's possible. It's definitely possible. So that's where it stands right now. Messi's friends are being shipped out of the club. Messi wants to go. He's not happy. He might not have anywhere to go. So he might have to stay. And is that good for Barcelona? No, it's not. But it's almost like they're trying to just wear this down. I think they're hurting themselves more than anything.
Yeah.
I really think at this point Barcelona should change their tactics and say, we will sell. We want a good transfer fee. We need money to operate. We need to go get other players, but we are willing to negotiate. Let's talk. Mm-hmm. They need to do that now because if they keep Messi there, he's not going to stink up the joint, but he's not going to have the same motivation. They need to move him on, but I don't think they're going to. Craziness. All right, let's get back on the Twitch pitch with comments. Let me get back to where I caught up. That's my Messigate update, Sean Vergara. I think I hit all of the major points there.
Guillaume Balagay says that Jorge Messi is going to talk to Leo today, and they will both decide next steps. And Gab Marcotti also had the same theory that Palmieri did about City still being banned in Europe.
Yeah, I think Palmieri had it first. I saw it associated with him more. I love everybody talking about Mucha Plata. Like we had all this thought and strategy in coming up with that as a sign-off phrase. We really didn't. It was a joke about Atlanta United at the beginning because they had Mucha Plata. Now it's turned into more, which is awesome. We're just not that smart. Foul count last night, Atlanta ATL UTD Tom.
39 total.
I don't think he cares about that part. How many times was Atlanta United fouled?
22.
That's what I thought. 27 on Saturday, 22 here. It is the most fouls Atlanta United has suffered in back-to-back matches. Funnily enough, the previous record was set earlier this season. So, look, Atlanta United's getting kicked all over the field. Guido Gonzalez, people had a wide range of takes on his performance as a referee. I thought he was okay. He was consistent, and that's all I ever ask. He did not want cards to decide the match, and he didn't use them a whole lot. But that was consistent both ways. So, that's all I ever want. It gets frustrating when teams' real strategy of play is just to foul. I mean, Eric Remedi was fouled 8 times. When Atlanta United's building up play, he's the one they're building up through quite often in the holding midfield. He was fouled 8 times. Not by the same player, and that's where you give Miami credit. They spread him around, so it was a little bit harder to hit anybody on persistent infringement. But, I mean, your number 6 is fouled 8 times in building up play. It drives you insane. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep going, and you just have to keep going, and you have to punish the team for doing it eventually. And Atlanta United's not doing that right now. It's one of those things. Burned on Tyler Wolff looking lost. I had to think of Tata's words when asked about Bello, Carlton, etc., who said he only inserts young players into the squad when the team is playing well, as in sync. Otherwise, it can hurt the young player and the team. Right now, Wolff needs full games with AU2. He does. Situation, again, we've talked about it. We've covered it. It is what it is. J.J. Williams did go to play for the Twos. He will stay with the Twos through the remainder of their season because of the entry ways in these protocols. There's like a 10-day deal where if you're going to change protocols, which this feels stupid to me. I understand it to a degree in terms of entering into a protocol system. I get that. But MLS and USL probably should have partnered on this so players could move more freely and have the same protocols. But MLS teams can literally afford to pay for more testing.
Yeah.
USL teams probably literally can't afford to pay for more testing. So you can't have the same protocols. And that's a shame because it makes it harder for these situations. But yes, Tyler Wolff needs full games, and I think he's going to get those next season. The training is what he's going to have to benefit from now. I don't think last night's anything that's going to hurt him, hurt his confidence. But yes, it is ideal that you would like to be able to put a young player into a team that's playing well to give them a lift. Right now, you needed the fresh legs. I thought he acquitted himself pretty well. He's a pretty tough mentally, so I think he's going to end up being okay with this, but we will see. 4 cards talking about Mario Balotelli for 6 months DP money. Man, I don't want that soap opera. I really don't.
Montreal.
Yeah, I mean that's where I've always felt he should go, but no, I don't know if that solves everything because then you shouldn't have signed Kubo Torres to begin with. Burns says our midfield's not cohesive. Looks like 3 guys who met up at Station Soccer. They don't read each other well, offense and defense. The last part's where I agree, more so offensively than defensively. Heinemann, Josetu, and Remedi felt like they were on different pages last night. And I think more of it was from Heinemann because we haven't seen him lately as much. I think Remedi and Josetu are starting to build some chemistry. I like Mateus Josetu's game. I'm a fan of his game and what he can bring to this team. But he's still got to build those connections because I've seen it every game where he's looking for movement that doesn't show up. He gets a little frustrated because he's asking for somebody to make a run. He wants something that is not happening for him. Remedi I thought was good last night. It was maybe not quite as good as the Nashville performance, but I thought it was very good. It was better than the Orlando performance. Maybe he can turn into that 6 by himself. Maybe. But he's got to have more connection with his midfield. I agree. They've got to be able to combine better through the middle of the park. I mean, if you go back and you look at midfield trio, and of course Barcelona's the gold standard here, but you look at Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta, those guys had the same dreams at night. I mean, they understood one another telepathically. You'd love to get to that point, but you can't play possession, build up soccer if you're not on the same page in that midfield trio. So they've got to continue to build that. If Heinemann can go on Saturday and you feel like that's the group, then you go with that group. If Jeff has to come on to spell Heinemann, then maybe you have to go in that direction because of legs. But you'd like to play that group together, I think, the rest of the way, if that's what you're going to commit to. Then that gets to your question about DP, though, and are you going to go to a 10? Because then you're only playing 2 of the 3, which would be another change. And might be how the season goes. It just might be how it falls. 4 card, will teams ever stop fouling Atlanta? Rhetorical question. Nope. Because you can break up the play. If you're going to be a team that builds up possession, you're going to get fouled a lot. Those teams always get fouled a lot. It's just part of the strategy to do it. I think this league needs to get stronger on persistent infringement, and it needs to get stronger on... I feel like persistent infringement only comes into play in the attacking half, and it shouldn't. Again, Remedi was fouled 8 times. It was obviously a tactic. It's, okay, they've broken through the first line of pressure, foul. Go ahead, knock him down. Foul, 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 foul. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're not going to end up getting anything, you keep fouling.
Yeah.
I think referees in this league need to look at persistent infringement all over the field, not just in the attacking half. Let's see. Bart says you can get persistent infringement for fouling the same player multiple times or for the team committing similar fouls in succession. The ref missed that over and over again. Absolutely. And you see referees do that. I think it's less common for referees to give basically the team foul for persistent infringement. I think they should give that more because this was a prime example of it. It needs to happen more. It doesn't happen consistently enough. I totally agree. Breck Shea had a whole bunch of fouls. He did not have 4 or 5, though. I was looking back at it throughout the match, and it was like 4, 3, 3, 2, 3, 1, to, I mean, they spread them out pretty good. I don't think anybody had more than 4.
Nope, LGP had 4. Figal, Shea, Chapman, Pizarro each had 3. Sweat and Ulloa had 2, and Lewis Morgan and Agudelo each had 1.
A lot of talk about a 6-month designated player. Ricky says it doesn't make sense. 4Card says, is there one out there? 4Card says no long-term commitment. New manager can decide to extend or move on without burden. You're not getting a young player that you're normally looking at on a 6-month with an option for a year. You're going to get those guys with a long-term commitment. So you're not going to commit DP money to a 32, 33, 34-year-old that you would get in that kind of deal. So I don't think it could fit, to be honest. Sean said the only thing about the ref last night that bothered me was transition fouls that were not penalized consistently. I think not penalized in terms of that yellow, but the consistency was that he wasn't given a whole lot of yellows. So, I mean, it's consistent. Like, you just have to play in that structure. Like, that's the thing is, when I was coaching kids, it was always like, you have to play the game that the ref is calling. You can't play the game that your last ref was calling. Like, there's nothing you can do. You can complain all you want, but it's not going to help you. Like, if he's going to call it that way, pop up, play quickly, and go. That's all you can do. And then take advantage of it for yourself. Then, okay, they're going to play that way. Then, cool. They broke our first line of pressure. Foul, foul, foul. Knock Victor Ulloa down about 10 times. See what happens. Do it. Like, if that's what the ref's going to give the game, then take it and play. Matt said, we're not scouts, but any good candidates for designated players that we may recognize? Probably not recognize. I would look at some of the top young talents in Argentina. I think that's where the best market is right now. Brazil possibly, but even with the financial issues that are hitting South America, I don't know if you're going to be able to get the best deals in Brazil. Colombia potentially. I have no problem shopping in Ecuador, but I think you can get some of the top young talent out of Ecuador at TAM kind of levels. I don't know if it's necessarily DP levels. I think you can get, you can look at the players of the season in the last season in Argentina, and anybody under 25 is in your wheelhouse. I mean, just off the top of my head, and this is not to start a hashtag Pitti replacement and start that nonsense. But Agustin de la Cruz for River is a player who I think could fit. Urtzi from Bonfield is a player on the left who I think could fit. Those are the two that jumped out to me that I thought were the most realistic that could happen. Hold on one second. I'll just give you the basic rundowns on these guys, just so you know. I don't know if they would be under target here or not. Nicolas de la Cruz. Sorry, it's Agustin Urtzi and Nicolas de la Cruz. It's mixing up my prospects from Argentina. De la Cruz is Uruguayan. He's 23. He's got 26 caps with Uruguay, 5 goals. Plays primarily as that number 10 attacking midfielder. Valued at $13.2 million on a transfer market. That's down from where he was at the end of 2019, but everybody's down right now. He's a talented player, and I think he fits. He's a little small, and if we're worried about players getting kicked regularly, well, he would get kicked regularly. Agustin Urtzi is the same kind. De la Cruz is 5'6", by the way. Urtzi is young, talented player at Bonfield, Eric Remedi's former club. He is 20, turned 20 in May. Young Argentine, quick. He's more of a left-sided player. He's 5'7". I like his speed. He's been an Argentine Youth International. Those are two guys that jumped out to me that I could see here. So I think Urtzi is in the $10 million range according to Transfermarkt. I think that's the kind of market you're looking at. Could some of the players in those ranges be in Europe already? They could. I think it's going to be harder to get those guys. I think it's going to be easier to get the guys out of South America. That's where I see it. Oh, Shooter McGavin showed up. What's up, Shooter? Shooter is not happy about his team. New England Revolution. Just look at the trash Revs. You really think we are going to hold on to any lead in the standings with Matsian and old Brokeback Bruce? Season is over.
Wow.
Man, Shooter.
Wow.
It's been Atlanta United therapy session, Shooter, but I'm sorry about your Revs. The season kind of went into the tank when Carlos Heel got injured, huh? Mm-hmm. And Gustavo Boas played as a number 10, which he's not, and Bruce kind of called himself a little silly for doing that. That was weird. Matt Wagner's mentioned Agustin Almendra for Boca, and he's another one that came to mind. I wonder if he's closer to Europe, and that's why I was a little more like, maybe. Possibly. I mean, I think you consider it. Boca's in a very different financial position, too, than the rest of South America, even River. Those days of River being the Millonarios and Boca being the poor, scrappy team, that flipped a while ago. Boca's the team with money, and River is not. That's why they sold Pitti in the first place, and that's why they're very happy they're going to get a little bit of money off of this deal. Not a ton. I think it's around 300,000, 400,000 is what it's sounding like. So they need to sell more. I don't know if Boca needs to sell right now. They might want to hold off and sell him to Europe, Almendra. We'll have to see. Burns says they shouldn't get another 10, get a left winger who can score. We should have signed Pavone instead of Pitti, but hindsight's 2020. Yeah, definitely that. I think some of the idea, I mean, and this has gone on in the last week, was Pitti can play on the left, not as a 10. Pitti is a hard player to fit into a traditional position to begin with because he's just one of those free-spirited kind of players. You build a team around him. You create a structure around him so he can go do what he does best. If you don't want to do that with this next one, I would tend to agree with Byrne. I think you're looking for a player who can feature on the left. Some of this decision is going to be down to how soon you think Ezequiel Barco is going to be on his way to another club. Because where does he go in the team? You know, I think you've created a system that Joseph will play up top. Jurgen Damm will have the opportunity on the right. Right now, I've always loved the idea of Barco as the 10. And if you add a player on the left, Barco would come inside. If you don't, Barco would be on the left. But we're seeing this midfield, potentially, of Remedi, of Hindman, of Rossetto. Bernd and I have mentioned it multiple times. I still feel like you can go and get a better number 6 that would make this team even better. That would sacrifice one of those guys if you play all 3. If you're only playing 2, it would sacrifice 2 of those guys. Then you've got to make some decisions about, do you move one of them? Which is possible. So if Barco's not going to be here long-term, or you're not thinking about him long-term, that will affect what you do with this designated player move. Because then you have another one to work with. And you've got this U22 initiative coming in, too, that you can utilize. And maybe that's where you get your 6. It's going to be nuts before the start of next season, y'all. Silly season is going to be so silly. So silly. Pacine, can you go ahead and repeat everything that's been said for my convenience? You had to jump off for work commitments for about an hour. No. I will not do that, Alex Pacine.
Go back and listen.
Yes, you can go back and listen later, and you can send me questions later on. I'm just kidding, man. It's all good. Katie Weaver talking about Pavone. Pavone has been good. He has. If he was in this team, then I think Barco would have moved into the number 10 role, and who knows how that would have gone. If Barco would have stayed on the field. So I could absolutely see them looking at a left-sided player. Could absolutely see that. With Dom on the right, with whoever the new player is on the left, I could see that working really well. Because I could see Rossetto having a future as that kind of hybrid 8-10 who can get forward, who can drop back and defend. We saw him close out the game playing in a deeper role last night. He could be that guy. I think you still need the 6. But, yes, I could see a player on the left. I could see that absolutely happening. Shooter McGavin telling Atlanta fans to simmer down. You guys have a winning franchise in a down year. I have a sorry loser franchise with an old owner and a coach.
Wow.
I added a few minutes, but you get
But it's an understood considering how Shooter is. Yeah.
Yes, Shooter's riled up. I like it. Chris Ashley says Liga MX seems to be shipping out all their talent. Anyone in Mexico on the list? I don't have the list right now on the player side. I got a list on the coaching side. Now I got to do a new list. Man, all the lists.
Separate. Just go buy a separate notebook.
No, I think I'm gonna have to like get the. I've got the kind of like easel paper. I don't have an easel, so I think what I'm gonna have to do is like write it on that and like put it up on the wall in front of me. So I've got coaching list, player list,
Yes.
pity replacement list, because now we got
Hashtag.
another hashtag replacement list.
Yes.
Mexico, you'll pay more in general. So, and you're going to have the money to work with, but you will pay more. So you've got to weigh that into it. Gwen agrees. Totally. Jarrett says, as long as we're talking about our teams, remember when San Jose didn't try to hurt my feelings?
Ooh.
I had more belief in San Jose, Jarrett. You sold me a bill of goods, man.
You got your total, though.
Well, yeah, not the way that I intended for it to happen, but Jarrett, I'm very disappointed in you. You led me astray. I was run amok, and it's not cool. No. So San Jose is not so great. They're scrappy. They're going to fight. Their games are going to be crazy, but sometimes crazy in a bad way. And LAFC's had their number from day one. Yeah. So how are we still feeling about Matias Almeida? Is he still the savior? Is he still the best? Where's their development been?
That's a question.
I mean, they don't have a ton of talent to work with, but have they progressed? Not really. Just saying. Yeah. Kefsey says, Gio Reyna, welcome to Atlanta. Yeah, not so much. Christian Pulisic, bring him home. Not so much. Let's see what else we got. All kinds of things I'm not going to repeat about the New England Revolution and ownership, et cetera, et cetera. Silly season is way underway, Mrs. Claus. That is absolutely true. Burned for me, Pitti was an inside forward cutting in from the left, but that doesn't play well with both Barco and Joseph's strengths. A fast winger, think Leroy Sané, would open up the middle for Joseph. It can. I do wish we would have had a chance to see it for more than at Motagua, because I think that was the line. I'd have to go back and look at that. That feels like it was 5 years ago. Yeah. At Motagua home, and at Nashville. The 3-4-3 with the two number 10s. I really wish we could have seen how that played out. It just didn't happen because of Joseph's injury, and you couldn't replace Joseph because then everything else needed to change. So you couldn't play that way, and that's something that Frank de Boer didn't realize, and it ended up probably affecting his job future. It wasn't the only reason what happened in Orlando, but yeah, the lack of solutions to Joseph's injury, trying to do the same thing without him, it didn't work. We'll never know. We'll never know if that could have worked or not. I think it could have. It would have been fascinating. I liked where it was going. We don't know. So now you're looking at something different because you're probably not going to have Barco long-term either. That changes it. You're not looking for a like-for-like replacement for Pitti. I don't know if there really are a whole lot of those. So you're looking for what fits the group that you think is going to be here for the next 18 to 24 months. And that's the decision you have to make on this designated player spot. And then you have to think about those U22 initiative spots, if they'd ever announce that too. So then you can start planning. It's like we're going to have lists, and we don't know exactly what we can use the lists for at the moment. So there we go. Matt Wagner's going down the Argentine rabbit hole, another player that I was pointing out to Mike Conti last night in commercial break when we were talking about it. Nicolas Fernandez with San Lorenzo. That's the range you're looking at, that kind of price tag. Then you're getting down to individual characteristics, and that's what's going to make the decision for you. Katie says, are there other Al Hassan connections for Pitti besides River playing them? Al Nasser. For Pitti besides River playing them Club World Cup there. I mean, if it was hard for him to adjust in Atlanta, Saudi Arabia is different. No, I think they looked at him as a player they wanted to spend a lot of money on. Yeah. Period. I mean, they didn't do it because of a game in the Club World Cup. Let's let's kill that narrative right now. They didn't do it because of one game where he played against them. They have a scouting department. Like they put the work in to see that he's a player that we think can fit what we want and that we can move forward with, and we think he's worth a lot of money. So that's why they went for him. Again, they were looking at Mesut Ozil. They have some international players as well. So this is the Saudi Arabian League's weird because you look at the valuation of that roster, it's not a crazy difference from MLS rosters. It's incredibly top-heavy, and that's why the average valuation is high, because it's top-heavy, and you have a league that is very top-heavy. So, they're going to play in Champions League a lot. They're bringing him in for Champions League. They're bringing him in to get to the Club World Cup again, that kind of stuff. But it's not just because of that game. I think it's literally they started scouting, and was he on a list maybe because of that game? Sure, but that wasn't the trigger for the purchase. They had the money, and they think he's a player that fits. I wonder if they reached out to his agent or the agent reached out to them. Probably the club reached out first and talked about salary and what they could offer, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is a little different. Okay, let's talk. And that's where you're at. No, I'm not doing the Jericho sound drop, Chris Ashley, because the WWE listens to everything too much.
Yes.
They do.
That is true.
So I don't use that one. Sorry, guys. Jarrett's begging for Almeida with this roster and funding. Wonder if you can sell that one to people. Jarrett would buy anything. But I wonder if you can sell that to people. Well, he didn't get San Jose to the playoffs, but he's going to come here and do that. Now, you can point to his past, and you should. And I think he's an excellent manager. You're going to have to make a whole lot more changes to the roster if you're going to play that style, though.
Yep. And
that style is, I don't know if it's a style that wins MLS. I don't think it is. I think it's a style that wins a shorter tournament. So, Domer United is in all caps. Re-signed Tito. Tito's barely playing at Libertad in Paraguay, guys. Love what Tito Villalba gave this team at the beginning, but he's not the same player anymore. I don't think he recovered from the injuries in a really significant way. Yeah. And I know Domer's kidding when you go all caps, so there's a lot of winky, winky, ha, ha, ha in that. But I'm looking back to see what he's done at Libertad. 2 goals, 13 appearances, 9 starts, 869 minutes. He's playing a little bit more. Came off the bench in their last one at the very end on August 31st. They played on the 27th, and he came off the bench in the 71st minute. Maybe he's battling an injury at the moment. 22nd. Came off the bench at the 46th minute, so his playing time's actually gone down in the last 3 matches. August 17th against Nacional, he didn't play. So he's in the last 3 games he's come off the bench, and he didn't play in the 4th game. So I don't know exactly what's going on there, if it's injury, if they've added other pieces or not. But he's not the same player he was when he was at his best here. He just isn't. Chris Ashley says there's always been rumblings of Luka Modric to MLS. I don't think that's what this team needs. He would be able to play as a 6 in possession in a big way in this league, but I think defensively he would be a liability. I don't know. He would be one of those 6-month kind of DPs if you're able to pull it off, but he finished really well with Real Madrid, so I don't think he's going anywhere. They were looking at potentially moving him on, but I think he's going to be an important part for them this year. Mezzano says, it is so difficult to think Atlanta could play with 2 up top and have someone to score goals this year with Joseph out, and next year alongside and complementing Joseph. Like Jason said, we need someone to finish in the final third, and there isn't anyone who is currently doing that on the team right now. Yeah, the thing we're going to need, too, is to replace a third of your shot-creating actions that Pity Martinez was contributing. So now you're not just needing somebody to finish, you're needing somebody to create the opportunities to finish.
Yep.
And you've got to have people step up. Chris Ashley, don't even talk about Gareth Bale. Stop it. Ricky Ricardo, were we supposed to be getting a future friendly with River? That was rumored. I don't know how serious the rumors were. Also, things have changed with that. I'd love to see it at some point. I'd love to see Atlanta United play in Buenos Aires against River and do it there. Do a home and away, then have them come here like the next year or something. I'd love to see that still happen. It could. But I don't know if it was a real part of that deal or not. Sometimes things like that get mentioned and things get crazy. Shooter says Bale would lay down and give no effort in MLS. He'd be golfing.
Yes, he would. So
he would go to the PGA Tour Championship at East Lake.
I was going to say East Lake. Yeah.
Oh, he'd get his way into East Lake for sure.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if he could talk his way into Augusta. That would be an interesting one if he could pull that one off. Maybe with a large donation.
Or if there was a member that wanted to bring him on as a guest.
Pacine says bad business maybe, but don't tell me y'all would turn your noses up at Bale. If he's not giving 100%, I would. And that's been the issue. To the point now that Real Madrid's like, we don't even want him around the team. They're trying to figure out what they can do, and I don't know if they can do it because they don't want to eat his contract. They don't want to buy him out just to get rid of him because it's so much money. He could be a liability because of the attitude. So if he's playing, if he's really playing, for sure, it'd be great. But you're not going to pay his contract, and I don't know if he has the motivation to play. That's my question about it. Question from Martha. If we can't find a long-term manager, meaning right fit that doesn't want to move on after 2 to 3 years, will Atlanta continue to suffer this who are we team rebuilding issue every few years? Is this something I just need to get used to? Already resigned to not getting too attached to players because we like to sell, but I'd prefer not to have to deal with this kind of unknowns and uncertainty every few years as well. I don't think that's the intention, but I don't think a manager is going to come here and be here for 10, 20 years. It just doesn't happen much in the world anymore. I think the club style, the club mentality, the club philosophy is what is going to be static. And you're going to see managers who are hired to fit that, obviously with some personal variations, but within the prism. Players the same way. So I don't think you're going to have people who are going to be here for long periods of time as a manager. I just don't. I generally think that managers have about 3 to 4 year life cycles in general. Sometimes it changes. Pep, for example, at Barca, felt like he stayed 1 year too long. He should have left after the 3rd year. I didn't think he did 3 years at Bayern, and now he stayed on longer at Manchester City, and that's been a bit of a surprise. Klopp has stayed longer at Liverpool. I don't think you're going to see the Wenger, Alex Ferguson days anymore. I just don't. I don't think that'll happen here because I think just like players, this can be a managerial jump-off point. Tata got a fat contract in Mexico based off his bounce back here. We'll see about Frank. I think he's probably in a better position than he was when he got here in terms of a European job. Maybe not by a ton, but he did win trophies here, and I think people saw him a little differently after the Inter and Crystal Palace time. So we'll see if that ends up being a jump-off for him. But I think it can be for managers too. So I don't expect somebody to be here for a long period of time. I think it's playing philosophy, it's club philosophy, it's what this team wants to be in that way that will be static. It's not a manager who imprints that on the team and on the club. Let's see. Burned. All the red cards in MLS and Kamar Lawrence, who ended a few careers, probably never got a red. When refs can't tell dangerous fouls from chintzy stuff, this is what you get. That's a really good point. I think there is, at times, a lack of understanding of players' intent with some of this stuff. Like the Antonio Carlos one for me. I don't think Antonio Carlos was trying to kick Brooks Lennon in the face. So I'm okay with the way that played out. I would have seen a second yellow, but fine. When you see what Kamar Lawrence did to Tito Villalba in his challenge, that was done with nasty intent. The kick to Barco in the Open Cup off the side of the field to the inside of the knee with force, that's done with nasty intent. That's different than a wayward kick. It's very different from the Franco Escobar situation where he was punished retroactively for. And these are things that are just looked at as just hard play. No, it's not. It's different. It's a different situation altogether. Uncle says Pitti was doing the job of 2 players. Selling him was a mistake. Last night is a direct result of that decision. I don't think it's a mistake, Unc, because I think he wanted to go, and I think he's going to be able to make a stupid amount of money.
Generational money, yeah.
I really think you're talking maybe in the $8 to $12 million a year range. If they were going to give Ozil 20, I don't think Pitti's going there for nothing. If he got the offer and wants to go, you don't want to force him to stay here. You know, it's the same conversation we've had about Barcelona and Messi. Like, what are you going to get out of him if you force him to stay? You're not going to get anything out of Pitti if you force him to stay. So they did not go looking for a deal. That needs to be understood here, and I hope people aren't going around trying to say that. They didn't say, we're tanking, we're going to sell everybody, let's go see what the highest bidder gives us. That was not what happened. I think Darren made that pretty clear in his comments. This offer came up. It was sudden. It's moved very fast. Stephen Glass thought Pitti would be playing a role in the match as late as Tuesday night. So it progressed very quickly. And it's what the player wants. And it's a really good offer. You're going to make a profit. Where for a lot of people, and I was not one of them, said that Pitti didn't do anything in Atlanta and he was a bust and all this stuff. Well, you're making a profit on the guy. You're selling him for more than you paid for him. And if he's so bad, why is it right now like the 12th highest transfer in this current window in the world? It's obviously not that bad. People will appreciate him when he's gone, I think, sadly. And they're going to appreciate him more when he's gone than they did while he was here, which is a shame. But I don't think it's a situation where selling him's a mistake. I think you had to take it because he wanted to go. And it's a good offer. So you can't say no to that. Now you're in a position where you have a spot open in this market that is a very good buyer's market. And that's why I think you do have to make the move now. And if you don't have a manager in place, you still have to make the move. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough. I don't think Pitti's inconsistency had anything to do with the deal. I don't think the team wanted to move on from Pitti. I don't think any of that factored into it. I think an offer showed up that they could not say no to, and Pitti himself could not say no to.
Yep.
And that's where you're at. Anything else on Twitter? Because I'm running out of voice, and I've got an interview at 11:30.
All right, so then we'll
Sorry, it was a
rapid
late
fire
night,
what we
guys.
have. Yeah. So we'll rapid fire what we have left here on Twitter.
Okay.
Atlanta United stuff first. Chiefs coach Steve. A reason we're where we are. League parity is an issue. Our front office changed the league to get back on top. We need to define and drive the next step in MLS evolution. That in 2020 is a cruel mistress.
Well, that U22 initiative could be really, really interesting depending on the parameters of it. Because if you're able to go get 3 players, and I'm just starting with Argentina because, again, I think it's where MLS has historically done the most business. I think it's where you get the most bang for your buck. I think right now you can get even more. If you go get 3 players who are under 22, who you're going to have a cap hit of around $150,000 is what it sounds like that's going to be. You can spend whatever you want on the transfer fee. Think of what that can do for your team. And go get 3 guys who are like starters right now with top teams in Argentina. Not, and again, it's not a knock on Eric Lopez, but the Paraguayan League and the Argentine League are 2 very different worlds. And Eric Lopez was not an established player in the Paraguayan League. And if you can go get guys who are established players in the Argentine League with major clubs, potentially players with Copa Libertadores, Copa Sudamericana experience, oof, you're talking about an infusion. And if you're a club who already went and did that with young designated players, and now you can go do it outside of designated players, good grief. That could be really fascinating to see. And you can go the step further, and I think it's something you need to look at because you can also look, because you don't need necessarily 3 new starters. you could look at it and say, all right, we're going to go get a number 6 that we like and we think fits, and he could be here for a little while. Cool, we're going to go do that with one of those spots. Might go over to Independiente del Valle, who's producing a ton of talent, and give them a really good deal for somebody that might have gone to a Belgian club or a Dutch club or a lower division team in Spain or whatever, and say, no, don't do that. Come here. Look at what we did with Miguel Almiron. Look at what we did with this player. Look at what we just did with Pity Martinez. Come here. Mm-hmm. So that U22 initiative could be that next change for sure.
You mentioned Argentina. Walt Baxley's like, didn't we pay a club in Argentina, I believe, a fee to be in front of the line for a particular player or two? Not sure I was thinking of that.
Rumors. I don't know if any of that's true. And I believe that actually already expired if the rumor was true. So you got relationships. You got deals in place, or deals that you have done with teams that you can go back and knock on people's doors because you've made them some money. And Bonfield's one. That's why Agustin Urzi immediately came to mind for me, is that this is a club that you did good business with on Eric Remedi. If they want to move him on, and they will eventually, if they want to do it now, you've got cash that could talk to them pretty well. Could whisper some sweet nothings into Bonfield's ear.
Mr. Fantastic, is the club in a rebuilding mindset?
No, I don't get that sense. I think it's reloading. I don't think it's rebuilding. Rebuilding means it's all broken. I don't think that's the case. And I know there are people who do, and I get that. I understand it. You couldn't plan for the Joseph Martinez injury, period. And that's had a huge effect. I mean, you get away from this and you get away from the emotions of it. 10 years, we look back at this season, and hopefully Joseph comes back full bore next year and is a 20-goal scorer. You look back at it and you're like, what happened in 2020? Oh, Joseph, knee injury, ACL. Okay. That's what I think is going to happen in time. Right now, it's too emotional, and I don't get it. There's just a very strong reluctance of wanting to accept excuses. It's a naughty word. No, it's just a reason why you're struggling. You're missing your top goal scorer, one of the top goal scorers in the league. It's hard. And that's where you're at.
A couple more. PHR Out on Twitter says, all the fouls last night committed reminds me of a hack-a-shack.
Yeah, a little bit. If you can get away with it, you keep doing it. And they did. And it was effective because it broke up any rhythm Atlanta was trying to find.
Sam Williamson uses a hashtag and a GIF. Hashtag hire Puyol.
Why? Has he won a professional game before? Would that be better than where you're at? That's I don't understand why. Now, if you hired him, he's going to sell the front office. Let's say that hire happens. The way it happens, he sells the front office on his vision. He sells his front office on understanding the club's vision, working within that. He sells the club on what he can do. There's no track record to look back on and say, he did this. So that's the part where I don't understand why fans would be clamoring, hire Puyol. What has he done as a manager to show you that he would win MLS Cup? He might do it. But why would you be convinced that he's the best option? His playing career doesn't translate. Otherwise, Diego Forlan would have won every match he managed at Peñarol. He didn't. It just doesn't always work that way. If Puyol wants to go into management, I'm a little surprised he hasn't gone into a technical staff to get that experience yet. I think he needs to if he wants to go down that road. I think he might want to go down the director of football road and be in the front office side of things as opposed to being on the touchline. If you're looking for something like that, I think you're looking for the next Mikel Arteta. You're looking for somebody in that vein who was a player but has been working under people and is ready to step in and lead a team. Puyol would lead a team based off what he did on the field, but would he be able to coach a team? We don't know. He hasn't done it.
Then that's it for Atlanta United thoughts. The last thought on the board goes to Rich Ransom, who reminds us of the Nations League play kicking off. this afternoon across the family of networks starting at 2:30, but it actually starts at noon with Latvia and Andorra in League D. Rich says, I think ESPN has enough programming for a linear soccer channel, but I'm not sure if the coverage will be there. The specialty channels are not on every carrier. See Longhorn Network.
Yeah, and every time you've tried it, I mean, Fox went down that road too, and it didn't work. I don't think ESPN would do it because it'd be going back on their ESPN Plus investment. They want people to subscribe to the Plus, and soccer's driven Plus subscriptions. So I don't think they'd go away from that now, because you're not limited with, a linear schedule on digital. You can just keep signing as many leagues as you want to and keep throwing them up there, and people have the options. I think you'll see the subscription price go up as you spend more on it, which, hey, I mean, that's fine. That's business. What you have today, Latvia, Andorra at noon. 2:45, Germany, Spain on ESPN2. ESPN Plus and ESPN3 situations. Other games that jump out to me, Ukraine and Switzerland at 2:45, Russia and Serbia at 2:45, Turkey and Hungary at 2:45, Bulgaria and Ireland at 2:45, Finland and Gareth Bale, if he is off the golf course, for Wales at 2:45. That's your Nations League matches today. You've also got a big game in the Brasileiro tonight on Fanatis on the Brasileiro pack. Atletico Mineiro and Sao Paulo at 7 o'clock. That's a game that I will probably be peeking in on. And on Goal TV on Fanatis from Uruguay, you've got Nacional and Cerro at 7:15. So lots of stuff. Not future Atlanta star Gareth Bale, Chris Ashley. No. Okay, I am totally out of gas, y'all. I apologize. We went like 17 minutes over. I got home last night from the stadium after everything. 11:30, 11:40, I think, and then walked Gwen, and then sat down and tried to watch the second half of LAFC in San Jose, and my eyes were crossing pretty quickly. So
time to call it.
Yeah, I am out of gas. I got an interview at 11:30 as well. So that's it for today. And I know we didn't get to all the questions. We really try to on these Overreaction Thursdays, but normally we don't have a major transfer and a match to talk about all at the same time during a season that's been difficult during a pandemic. Normally we don't have all that hitting at once. So welcome to 2020. Keep an eye on the Pitti news. I mean, a deal could get done today, could get done tomorrow. I mean, I think it's going to move quickly, but you're down to the final things. The agreement's done in principle, so be on the lookout for that. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody at this point. That's probably the next big thing that we're looking for. Stephen Glass is going to speak to the media tomorrow. We'll talk about Atlanta and Orlando deeply tomorrow and go forward from there. So until then, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for all the questions. Sorry we couldn't get to everything. Please tweet it at me if you want, and I'll try to get to it in a little while at Longshoe. You can get John's salt takes at OSG Nelson as well.
Or lack thereof.
Yes, all of the above. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks, you guys. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.